Hi everyone, for today's video I'm going to be doing a skill breakdown for Sir Lancelot. Sir Lancelot is a rightful alignment locked hero, so you're going to have to get your rightful alignment up to 13 before you can unlock his recruitment mission. He is a very unique champion, by far the most unique out of all of the other champion heroes within the game. And it's this uniqueness that offers him a sort of utility, support, versatility over the other champions that make him a lot of fun. In terms of raw damage dealing, he's not going to be quite as high as them, but his damage dealing by no means is bad, and he can certainly hold his own without any real complaints. So let's go ahead and see what he has to offer. Starting in Act 1, we have the usual strike, 4 AP, pretty, good base damage. With the upgrades, you can have it cause bleed for 15% damage at the start of the enemy turn and every time they take an action. Increase that weapon damage up by another 15%. Have it cause vulnerability. And then Glory Kill, reduce the cooldown every time you get a killing blow. His first unique ability is actually a very good one. It gives him mobility, which is something champions sorely lack in many cases. Assault. It's very similar to a defender's shield charge, however the minimum range that the enemy has to be away from him is a bit further. It is 3, cap of 6, this is with the upgrade of course, and hits them for 150% weapon damage, so it's a good bit stronger than your normal attack for also only 4 AP. 2-turn cooldown, it's pretty low, so you can usually use this one turn, then on the follow-up turn probably work on finishing off whoever's left, and then on the next turn charge again. You'll be doing a lot of movement, especially with this Glory Kill. You can get this pretty much back-to-back turns without too much trouble. That first upgrade that I mentioned, Lunge, increased the range by 1 tile. Not a huge range upgrade, but more range is always very useful. Blitz, you reduce the cooldown by 1, bringing it to that very solid 2. Onslaught, plus 15% weapon damage. And then Shocking Assault. Now, when you hit them, they become shocked. Shock is just a very strong debuff. If you don't have enough AP to finish them off with the kill, after rushing into them, this will reduce their ability to fight back. Next he has Cleave. This is a base ability for him. Every champion has it. 75% weapon damage for every unit within that 3-tile wide, long, whatever you want to call it, that target area. Very low cooldown of just 1, so you can use this every turn if you want. With the upgrades, you can have it do that 15% damage bleed. You can increase the damage for the center target by 20%, the just total damage by 15%, and give it some knockback. This next passive here is his replacement for Rage. It is unique to him, and it's still pretty good. The damage isn't quite as good as Rage, of course, with that stacking damage on kills, but it does make him actually stronger than his other champions from the start. So his damage capability against his first target is going to be higher and much more easily get his first kill or 2 compared to another champion, but, his 4th kill, 5th kill, his capability won't be as strong. So, looking at it, at base, plus 15% weapon damage when not adjacent to an ally, so this does kind of promote you to separate him a bit. You don't need to have him running off all on his own in a corner and just hope he does well, 1v1ing or 1v3ing, a group of enemies. He can still be relatively close by, just there has to be one space open. He can't be adjacent. With the upgrades, you increase that bonus damage by another 5%, so now it's a total of 20. Unburdened, he now gets an extra AP when he starts his turn, not adjacent to an ally, so just able to get another action in, potentially. Unyielding gives him some extra unbreakable armor. Unless you're stacking unbreakable armor, mentioned this before, on a lot of characters this isn't really worth taking. He does have this by default, so you will want to respec him. And then Battleborn gains 4 HP per hit when not adjacent. He does have a lot of AoEs, so you can actually get some pretty good health gain off of this ability. The next 3 are pretty standard. Juggernaut, extra 5% weapon damage for every tile traveled. This does include the tiles traveled using Assault. However, when you use Assault, it calculates the damage the second you use it, right then and there, so he won't get a buff on Assault from Juggernaut, but your follow-up attacks will. There is then extra bleeding, more bleed damage, and then strength for more weapon damage. Going into Tier 2, we have a familiar ability here with Power Attack, and just a very hard-hitting, high armor break move, single target, 150% weapon damage, and extra 15% armor break. If he is going to be your only champion, I think you should take this one. Having a very high armor break, high damage sort of nuke you can drop on an enemy in the form of Power Attack is very useful. I like to use him as sort of a secondary damage dealer, and so sometimes that pairs him with either a Vanguard or another champion, and this becomes less necessary. If you want to use him as your primary damage dealer, you're probably going to want to take this. 3-turn cooldown, 5 AP cost. Nothing too crazy, but this can get better. With Ready to Purge, reduce the cost by 1, so now it costs the same as a regular attack. That's really good. Vulnerability, 30%, so just makes the follow-up after this, because you want to use this as your opener generally, makes it that much easier to kill them. And Initiator, incentivizing this being your opening attack that much more, it does 25% more damage if they have just full HP and full vitality. This adds a lot of damage. And then of course we have Stunning Blow, plus 1 AP for the cost, bringing it back up to 5, but it does stun. This is sort of situational. This is good for, beefy elites, bosses, if you can, get their resistances down a bit. He does have a passive in Tier 3 to help counteract those resistances. I usually take it, but it's definitely not mandatory. Then we get to a big one here, Inspire. Normally only see this on sages, but Lancelot has this, which is what really diversifies him as also providing a lot of utility, a lot of support. It has all the same upgrades as a sage, so it's basically kind of like a battle sage with Lancelot. He's tankier, does more damage, but he has one of their best abilities, Inspire. Plus 2 AP for the turn, 4-turn cooldown, 3 AP cost, but with the upgrades, reduce cooldowns by 1 on the rest of your party, which is very useful. Grant 1 movement AP, reduce the cooldown by 1, and then the last one, Unbind, remove just a bunch of status effects, chill, freeze, slow, stun. There are times, I have mentioned this before, where I kind of wish I had this, but then there's plenty of times where this doesn't come up and I wouldn't have needed this, so, weigh it out yourself, make the call, figure out which, how often are your characters really suffering from these status effects, and should you have this. Next is Armorer. Minus 1 AP from the heavy armor penalty that you wear. You can see, for wearing this heavy armor, their base AP pools are reduced by 2 or 1. Some heavy armors have less defensive stats, so they only have a penalty of 1. So you definitely want this, more AP in your base pool, the more actions you can do. Lancelot, however, is a bit unique for a champion. Usually for champions, this is it. Defenders, however, get a bunch of upgrades on this, which Lancelot also gets upgrades to make him tankier, and I think this is to help sort of lean into and accentuate his sort of lone wolf playstyle. He's going to be a bit more removed from the party and therefore potentially taking more hits. With the upgrades, it's just, doubled up on these two. We have 2 thick-skinned for a total of plus 8 armor, and then 2 fitted armors for a total of plus 10% HP. Next, he has an offensive spell. You've seen this on a number of other characters. We have Ice Spikes. It's 100% weapon damage in a cone for 3 AP, 3-turn cooldown. This is basically just a cheaper move than a basic strike, so this is worth using sometimes, even for a single target. If you're not trying to get the cooldown reduction, you're just trying to conserve AP, Ice Spikes is a very good option for that, as well as, it's sort of a better cleave, honestly. With the upgrades, 10% weapon damage for Ice Spikes off of Impaler. Ice Forge, you reduce the AP cost by 1, that's what's making it 3, a more efficient attack. Frost Shards applying chill, in case, of course, you don't always get the kill. And then Bursting Spikes, knockback. The last 2 passives here, Strong-Willed for 30% mental debuff resist, and Robust. 10% HP, 10% vitality, 10% physical debuff resist. Just making him tanky. Lastly, going into Tier 3, we have a familiar move that a lot of these sort of basic champions have. Whirlwind, 120% damage to all adjacent units for a pretty high cost of 6, 3-turn cooldown. 6 may sound fair considering the amount of enemies you could theoretically hit. I usually don't pick this one because there aren't a lot of situations where you're going to be surrounded on a type of level where Whirlwind will suddenly become very useful. There's a lot of cases where it's just more AP efficient to maybe weaken those targets with your teammates and then single target one and try and chain kills the other two or three or whatever. But I know some people really like Whirlwind. That's just my personal taste. Whirlwind's okay, not a huge fan of it. But going into the upgrades, you can have it cause bleed, 15% damage. You can have it apply knockback, an extra 15% weapon damage, and then reduce the AP cost by 1. Next we have a lot of familiar passives with damage focus. You gain 5% weapon damage for reserving AP on your turn, 5% for each AP reserve. You can bring that up to 8% with Smite the Weak upgrade. You can get extra AP carried over into your next turn for every 3 AP that you conserve. And then Readiness, extra armor for every 3 AP that you conserve. You can get a pretty good defensive boost. The last one is Focus to Watch. Basically, you can use Overwatch to end your turn instead of just hitting the pass button. And you will basically just be able to swing at enemies and still get the bonuses from damage focus. Next we have Melee Expertise, some extra armor, unbreakable armor, and some extra debuff resist. It's whatever. The big thing we're taking here, though, is the upgrades. Killing Spree, free strike skill, gets used on an adjacent enemy whenever you get a kill with any ability. And then Combat Specialist, just extra damage buff for adjacent enemies, just making it that much easier to get your kills. Heat of the Battle, extra AP for being surrounded by a bunch of enemies. And then Overdrive. You get a cooldown reduction for being outnumbered. All of these upgrades are honestly pretty good. Lancelot does have an issue that some other characters have where he has a lot of moves, a lot of good moves, and you just really run out of skill points by the end, and you really have to decide what it is you want to prioritize on him. Up next he has Radiance. I think this is unique to him. There are other characters with blinding moves. I think he's the only one that has this one, though. If I'm wrong, go ahead and let me know who else has it in the comments, because I genuinely can't recall who else. But anyways, this blinds all adjacent targets. This affects your own as well, so be careful when using this. And Blind by default applies an 80% chance for the target to miss their attacks. It only lasts 1 turn, but it's a great defensive. You use Assault, rush into a group of enemies, and then blind them. And then their ability to hurt him while you wait for him to recoup his AP for the next turn is greatly diminished. Has really good upgrades too, tons of debuffs. You can have it also apply Chill. You can reduce the cost by 1, bringing this down to 2. You can have it apply Vulnerability, 20%, and then reduce the cooldown by 1. So now a 4-turn cooldown is a lot better than a 5-turn cooldown. So with 1 move, 3 debuffs. It's not bad. Then, of course, the final passives, and then extra stun plus 50% efficiency for stun and slow. He does not have Earthshaker, which is kind of a big one in my opinion. So this would only be good for taking the Stunning Blow upgrade. I usually don't take this anyways. And then, of course, Hardened Armor, making him a bit more tanky. This kind of does synergize a lot with, some of his other defensive passives he has access to. Then extra area damage, so his area attacks do more damage. This is, Whirlwind, Ice Spikes, Cleave. So he still has a good amount of AoE attacks to benefit off of this. So there you have it. That is the full skill breakdown for Sir Lancelot. He's a pretty popular hero. It's not hard to see why. He's very unique and, very cool, and he probably has one of the highest name recognition out of all the characters in the game. A lot of people, if they even know a little bit about Arthurian legend, have probably heard of Sir Lancelot. He's a lot of fun to use. There's a lot of different ways you can build him, so I really appreciate it when the devs have characters that are so diverse like this. You can really sort of just have yours be built in one way that'll be very different from another's, and both of them will work very well. So that does it for me in this video. Go ahead and leave a comment and tell me how you like to build your Lancelot. I would actually be pretty interested to see what other people like to do with theirs. There's just so much he's capable of doing. And yeah, thanks for watching.